I've always been a fan of Disney games growing up. I always played Disney Infinity, loved Toy Story 3, I played up about 2 times, and don't even get me started about WALL-E. That was a good game. So when I saw Disney Illusion Island was releasing, I got pretty excited. Not only do I like Disney, but I also really enjoy 2D platformers like Metroid Dread and Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. Disney Illusion Island is a brand new 1 to 4 player co-op adventure platformer that has you and your friends platforming through a magical, mysterious world. Is this game worth it? So strap on your Mickey ears, we're about to take a magical trip to Disney Illusion Island. When you first start up the game, you see your favorite Disney characters, Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Goofy all gathered together. Turns out you've been tasked with retrieving 3 ancient tomes which have gone missing in order to save the world of Monoth from impending doom. So right off the bat, it's not the most unique plot, but it gives you a clear goal. While the main story might not necessarily keep you on the edge of your seat, the overall gameplay style and challenge will keep you entertained. At first glance, you might find this to be a tad familiar, because it is. You'll immediately draw similarities to the Rayman games, and that's a good thing. This is the type of game that we see pretty often, and we've seen even more in development, especially for this year. So it's important for a new game like this to be unique to set itself apart. Something that makes this game particularly different are the levels, because they aren't actually conventional contained levels like you might see in Super Mario Bros. Where the levels have a start and an end. This game isn't nearly as linear as that. Instead, think of this game as a 2D open world platformer, because you get this massive map you get to explore. But don't let that scare you away, because it's incredibly easy to figure out where to go. You can easily access the map at any time to know where you are, and it's easy to determine your next objective in the story. This is very Metroidvania-y, a massive map that makes you go back and forth from place to place looking for keys and secrets along the way. Very rarely does this game ask you to do massive cross-map trips, and if it does, there's some features later in the game that can help you travel from point A to point B rather quickly. But it's never felt tedious running back and forth. In fact, I found it to be quite fun, especially because while you're going through the main objective, you'll unlock power-ups like boost jumping, wall jumping, and ground pounding. These are important gameplay mechanics you'll be using as you get further into the game. And once you learn them, you'll be able to go back to the places you've already discovered to find more hidden gems. And yes, there are hidden gems, lots of them. This game has a sizable number of collectibles to find and enjoy. First, there's tokens, spelt with a U, 'cause edgy. You can find these hidden and trapped around the map. These will give you descriptions of certain enemies and NPCs, similar to collecting trophies in Super Smash Bros. There's also Mickey memorabilia. While traversing through these creative areas, you'll find these and unlock a timeline of Mickey's vast history throughout different eras. You'll also notice these sparkly things called glimps. The more of these you collect, the more pages you can unlock, to show off some cool posters giving you more backstory on the lore of the game. And while you're gathering all these collectibles, you'll unlock accomplishments, which is pretty much like the trophy system we see on PlayStation. While going through the maps, you might even stumble across some key NPCs like Mazzy, who gives your team special abilities in different Disney ways, or Jito, who unlocks parts of the map the player hasn't explored yet. So overall, the gameplay loop is quite fun and is especially captivating for the Disney lovers out there. And yes, this game is very Disney. There's classic 2D animated cutscenes with original voice actors from the shows. There's wonderfully orchestrated music, and the game simply exudes a really family-friendly aesthetic that the whole family can enjoy. And there's a whole lot of Mickey. Now that we've gone over the fundamentals of the game, let's talk more about what makes this game stand out. Multiplayer is a huge part of the game, and personally is best experienced that way. This game was incredibly easy to teach just about anyone who picked it up. Because of the minimal button inputs and simple controls, it made the non-gamers in my family learn it quite quickly. This may change later in the game as you slowly build your power-ups, but this game is meant to be played with the same group of people the entire time. For example, you'll want beginners to slowly accumulate the power-ups instead of giving it to them all at once, because that can be tricky to catch on to. So as you build your roster of abilities, you'll learn with that enhanced skill set. Though even if they do feel a bit behind, the game gives you ways to help your friends in past difficult sections, or if they find themselves stuck. Heck, I even played with my parents, who are barely gamers, and they easily learned the rope mechanic. Each character is also very unique in their own way. First you have Mickey, the standard courageous guy that won't let anything stand in his way. He's got a pencil to stick into walls and uses yo-yos to swing from. There's Goofy, which is a goofy character. He uses a fork to cling to walls and a sausage link to swing from place to place. And this is exactly the Disney feel a game like this needs. Then Minnie is a cool female lead and Donald Duck is the angry one. Regardless of which character you choose, everyone has the exact same stats. Everyone runs the same, jumps the same, and feels the same. There's no advantage with one character over the other. Of course, you don't need to play multiplayer. In fact, for a solid half of my gameplay, it was just me running around the map single player. You might be forced to play this game single player because of the model of Switch you have. I'm of course talking about the Switch Lite, but I wouldn't really worry about that. This game is perfectly pleasant in single player. The gameplay just lacks the sense of teamwork the devs wanted you to enjoy. The way the game handles difficulty is through the number of hearts you have. Higher difficulty means that you can take fewer hits before you are sent back to the previous checkpoint. The main difficulty comes from avoiding obstacles and enemies along the way, but that brings me back to how the heart mechanic works in single player. One of the main purposes for a checkpoint was to make it a respawn point to the other people you play with. Kind of like having the dead player in jail and needing a teammate to make it through the rest of the obstacles and revive everyone before they lose all their hearts themselves. It really makes you and your teammates feel suspense when you're the last one standing and everyone is counting on you. In single player, the checkpoints feel unimportant, especially because you lose nothing except time when you die. And I think this is another reason they added infinite lives, for single players and younger or inexperienced gamers. And quickly speaking of younger players, this game is great for them. If you've got a younger brother or sister that's always bugging you to play a game with them, this is the game to pop in. They can play with you and contribute without having you worry about hindering a more experienced player, such as yourself. And if they're still having a difficult time figuring out the controls, there's a plethora of assist options, like jump and wall cling assist. This can be turned on for players who jump too early or too late, and it can allow them to perfectly time their jumps. You can even change the speed of timed elements for varying player reaction speeds. The game is very generous with its control and hitboxes so that all ages and skill levels can enjoy this game. One thing that was a little frustrating when playing with other players was the camera. The camera only follows player one, so other players can find themselves left behind or trapped off screen. It's not a big deal since there's no penalty for the other player, they just sort of catch up in an envelope. But it's not particularly fun for the person stuck behind. Splitting the screen or zooming out to allow the other players to catch up would have been a better solution in my opinion. This also means you're at the whim of wherever player one wants to go or explore. So it can be a bit frustrating if you're trying to reach a secret area and player one just sort of pulls you away. The only time anyone aside from player one can control the camera is when player one dies and is awaiting revival at a next checkpoint. The graphics and performance of this game are all they need to be at 1080p at 60 frames per second. This game runs like a breeze on Switch and doesn't dip or chug at all, which makes sense. These graphics aren't complex at all. It's just a simple cartoon feeling. While the game's graphics aren't revolutionary, they absolutely nailed the Disney experience the game was going for with these environments. Everything looks very Disney, and the character movements are super spot on. Because unlike the camera, which moves at 60 frames per second, the character models animate at 12 frames per second like the OG cartoons did. So this might seem a tad off at first, but my eyes adjusted really quickly. Each character still has a crazy Disney flair. Literally each character animation and most assets for this game are hand-drawn. This gives big Cuphead vibes. Except this feels like a modern take. Overall, while docked, the game runs and looks fantastic. And playing the game handheld is perfect for single player play. Even though you can play with multiple people handheld, it's not the most comfortable experience, but you can. If you do choose to play multiplayer in handheld mode, the split Joy-Cons work great. Obviously the split Joy-Cons aren't the most comfortable long term, but it certainly does the trick, especially because of this game's minimal button input requirements and pure platforming gameplay. If this were a more advanced and fast-paced game like Smash Bros, where you need to use every button simultaneously, it would be incredibly frustrating. So thankfully, Illusion Island's less complex gameplay suits the split Joy-Con layout without any issues. The biggest problem with handheld play with multiple people is the size of the screen, especially when you have more than 2 people. The graphics and performance are also fantastic looking in handheld, with the game looking particularly great on the OLED display. The vibrant colors and deep blacks of the display can really make this game feel all the more magical. The overall performance is smooth, just like the docked mode, and will give you the max 720p at 60 frames per second. The only graphical issues I've noticed with handheld is how small the characters can feel on the screen, and I played the OLED model, so if you're on the OG Switch or the Switch Lite, that may be more of an issue for you. Now the audio. I love the original orchestrated soundtrack that flows through the levels and menus perfectly. It's whimsical, cute, and quirky. I constantly found myself humming simple yet catchy tunes throughout my day. Even the people I was playing with said, "The music sounds like I'm in a Disney park." And on top of the fantastic music, you have classic cartoon hit and bonk sound effects to make the game even more enjoyable. These sound effects are perfect and they're everywhere. It also feels like all the moving elements in the background are moving with the tempo of the music. which they're actually not, but it feels like that. Disney Illusion Island are for those who really enjoyed their experience playing Super Mario Bros. Or Metroid Dread. And if you haven't played those games, it's for those who want to save $20. Of course, there are similar games cheaper than this already on the market, like Rayman Legends, which capitalized on 4-player local co-op and included more competitive, complex gameplay mechanics like combat. But Disney Illusion Island is a family-friendly version of all those games that you can easily pick up and play. Is this game worth it? Well, yeah, definitely. If you're looking for a game like this, or a game to play with multiple people, especially younger players, this is a perfect sort of game to pull out at holidays or family gatherings. The story is fine, the gameplay is great, the graphics are wonderfully hand-drawn, and the audio is great as well. So I definitely recommend. Let me know if you're going to be picking up on July 28th, and if you like reviews like this, check out my channel, maybe give me a good old subscribe. So thanks for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. See you later.